Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co-host, Saur, and today we are talking about Game 3 between Inter Miami and Nashville. It's actually Game 4 because they played each other on decision day, but this is the only one that really counts. Will Inter Miami get the victory at Chase Stadium and advance to the conference semifinals, or will Nashville haunt our dreams and nightmares for the next 365 days? That was the talking point. That was the hype for the big game until news broke yesterday that one of Inter Miami's key starters is going to be suspended for this game. And that throws a huge wrench in everything we're doing with this game, and we're going to talk about it. But before all of that, I'm your host, Scott. I'm here with my co-host, Saur. How are you feeling tonight, my man?
It's been a long week. I am tired. I'm ready for the weekend. So energies are low, but what better way to increase your energy than talk about Inter Miami here with you? I'm excited. How are you? How's life? And how are we feeling?
I am nervous. I'm nervous about this. I have seen a lot of people respond to the Suarez news as if it's a blessing in disguise, as if it's a good thing, and we will talk about it. But while I understand the sentiment and I understand where it comes from, it also assumes that the response is right and perfect, and that the guy you want to see come in for Suarez is A, the guy who comes in, B, plays to the best of their ability, and C, Inter Miami wins. And all of those things are, I think, in doubt, with none more in doubt than I think the guy you want to come into the starting 11 to replace Suarez, I'm not confident is the guy that will come in. And I'm not talking about you, so I'm talking about every Inter Miami fan out there. So we'll talk it all through. But before we do, let's get to the other big breaking news, which is Tata Martino, former Inter Miami coach, who led us to the Leagues Cup trophy in 2023 and the Supporter Shield in 2024, was let go,
In as many words.
broke up with Inter Miami at the end of last season, in part because the team lost Game 3 of the first round to Atlanta United. He is now joining that Atlanta United team as the next manager, joining forces with former sporting director Chris Henderson, who is now in charge of that project. How are you feeling about Tata back in the game? I think we've heard some rumors about LAFC. Obviously, Atlanta United is where he's already coached and has relationships there, and has a relationship not just with people in Atlanta, but Chris Henderson, who he worked with at Inter Miami. How do you feel about him joining a conference rival? And does it make you nervous at all?
I mean, it is what it is. You've clearly pointed out the irony of the situation, which I'm fully aware of. I think Atlanta was the final nail in the coffin of Tata Martino's Inter Miami, and they claimed that he needed to take some time off, but for those more perceptible to the world of football, it looks like he was let go because he underdelivered. The irony being that he's now going to the team that basically cost him his job. Not surprised, he's obviously coached there before. That was his team before Inter Miami came across. I think you and I both recognize that this is a good Atlanta team that has underdelivered, underperformed this entire season, has not really clicked into gear, which is good for Inter Miami because it feels like Atlanta was our boogeyman last season, not this season. And I think they'll be able to find their potential under Tata Martino, and I'm okay with that. I don't think Tata Martino was here long enough for us to cry about him joining a conference rival to be mad about it. I think that's fine. It's understandable. That's how the MLS works. And Atlanta is not really a direct rival. So if Tata had gone to Orlando, maybe it would have been a bit more spicy and unpalatable. But it's fine. He has a history with Atlanta. It's understandable that he's gone there. And I think he's going to do really well. It's a good match for both club and the coach. I think he's going to deliver there for sure. As long as he doesn't come into Miami's way of winning trophies, I'll be fine. But I think it's going to make for a couple of really interesting games next season in the MLS, and if we see them in any other tournament there as well. Dare I say, it might cost Inter Miami some points, but I hope not.
Well, you say that they're not direct rivals. This does feel like the type of thing that could lead them in that direction. Atlanta is the second closest city to, or MLS team to Miami. And if they prevented Lionel Messi from winning an MLS Cup in his time at Miami, like that could be a serious thing, especially if it's done by the people that Inter Miami let go or broke up with, maybe is the better way to put it. So I am very curious about this. One thing I will just note, Inter Miami fired Phil Neville, and he got another MLS job pretty quickly. Inter Miami fired Tata Martino, who does have a longer track record of success, both in the league and over the course of his career. Also get a job pretty quickly. I'm not suggesting that Inter Miami let those two coaches go before they had to or before it was the right time to do that. But I do think it says something that other teams in the league saw what they did in Inter Miami and said, I'd like that. And Inter Miami thought it wasn't good enough. And I want us to keep that in mind moving forward, where Inter Miami is not going to settle for coaches that, even if they are considered quality coaches, aren't providing or delivering what they are expected to provide and deliver. And we should keep that in mind over the course of the rest of time, but obviously hyper scrutinized after the end of this season. So that I think is really interesting. As far as Tata Martino and Atlanta, that does makes me nervous because I think they have a lot of talented players, and clearly Randy Dyla, who was the coach this year, was not the right fit. They got off to a bad start and they never recovered. But there's a lot of players in that team, including the second most expensive signing ever, and was the most expensive signing ever at the time, in Emmanuel Latelath and Miguel Almiron, who has clearly been really good in this league before, Pedro Amador, a lot of guys that, well, we've seen firsthand can really make a difference against Inter Miami. So I'm nervous. I think I think Atlanta is a team to hyper focus on this offseason because I think they're going to be able to retool that roster, and I think under Tata Martino they're going to get better and better over the course of the season next year. And
no, I agree with you. I completely agree. Atlanta is going to be a good team next season. And I also think you made a very good point before you move on to your next one. I think you said it really well. Inter Miami's project is different, and it can't be measured by the same stick as a Portland project or an Atlanta project. So the fact that Inter Miami let these coaches go, I'm comfortable with that. Phil Neville was clearly not a fit for this team. Tata Martino was not able to get the best out of all the resources that were provided to him. Maybe there's a case to be made that if he had another season, he could have done better, but I think it was time. We haven't been able to find the right coach that will extract the best out of this team so far. But I think that's okay. Inter Miami is at a different point in its trajectory, in its project, and it's understandable why these coaches, who might be considered really competent MLS coaches, are not a good fit for Inter Miami. And that needs to be said.
do you think he has coached both at the national team and club level? In terms of his club stops, he's never stayed anywhere particularly long, a year or two, virtually throughout his career. Obviously, with the international jobs, he stayed for an entire cycle for Paraguay and for Mexico. He's now 62 years old, and I think when I was looking at what he was doing in Inter Miami, he was building a project, and Inter Miami with Lionel Messi and with what they're doing now is not about building a long-term project. It's about winning everything right now. There's like an urgency to it, and he wasn't necessarily matching up to those expectations. So I think there's a chance, obviously on-field results will determine everything, that he might make Atlanta the longest stay of his career in club coaching because he has the relationship. It is sort of a homecoming for him. It's in a league he knows really well. He's got that scouting support network that he took advantage of at Inter Miami and brought guys like Diego Gomez. And he certainly did a lot of that when he was at Atlanta too. So I could see him being there as the savior and staying there for like 5 or 6 years and being a real thorn in Inter Miami side for like a long time.
I don't know. I don't want to go that far because 5-6 years is a long time. This is the MLS. One
Well, it's
season the
not.
team is brilliant.
There's certainly coaches that have gotten that type of tenure in the MLS and much longer.
Yeah, and again, it's too far down the line to think about 5-6 years. I think I want to look at the next year, and next year makes me nervous. Next year does make me think that Atlanta is going to be a real powerhouse with how things are in terms of their player recruitment. They have Chris Henderson, they now have Tata Martino. They're all familiar with the club, and I don't think Tata Martino is going to need time to hit the ground running there. So for me, maybe the next year, perhaps the year after, Atlanta is going to be a very, very good side. After that, we'll wait and watch. But it's all about Inter Miami in my mind. And Inter Miami has to do enough in the offseason, has to do enough with its recruitment to make sure that they don't get left behind when it comes to competition and are still in a position to be competing for the best of the trophies, if not being the outright favorites. So I hope Inter Miami responds in the offseason with some good moves, whether it's in the coaching or whether it's with the players. And you can only control what you can control. And in Miami's situation, you can only control your own recruitment and your behind the scenes situation. So Atlanta is going to be a difficult opponent, that's for sure. But we'll see. I think 5 years is too long to even think about.
Well, you gotta have a bigger imagination, my friend.
Probably.
Okay, we have to get into Luis Suarez. We will. But I just want to wrap up everything else around the team first. It has been a very calm week, I think. There was reports that Rodrigo de Paul went back to Argentina again. I don't know if we need to get into that. We talked about it a little bit after the game this past weekend, and it may or may not be a topic of conversation moving forward. But for tonight, I don't know if it's relevant. Messi was at a business expo yesterday, but that was in Miami, so I don't think there's any, and I didn't see any. I tried to look for interesting quotes or anything, and I didn't see anything that came out of that. So the other thing maybe worth mentioning is the Columbus Crew on Saturday night got a dominant victory over Cincinnati in Columbus. So that series, which is that'll determine who Inter Miami might play in the next round, is also going to Game 3, which will be in Cincinnati on Saturday. So anything else on your mind?
No, I think the Rodrigo de Paul situation will become a lot worse if Inter Miami gets eliminated. I think that will definitely become a talking point just about the general state of the team, the seriousness with which they approach the playoffs, and professionalism across the board. But again, it's speculation right now in terms of what it would mean for Inter Miami going into the next game. That's about it. I hope Columbus pulls it off against Cincinnati, although I think Cincinnati at the TKO Stadium is probably going to win. But again, Inter Miami has to do the job in their own backyard first before even considering what happens in other games. So I think it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, my man.
Okay, for those that didn't hear yet, Luis Suarez is suspended for Saturday night's game 3 against Nashville for a off-ball moment that occurred in the 71st minute, second half of Wednesday night's game. I have it on screen. They showed the replay of it. He kind of like throws his back leg out into the groin area of Andy Nahar. The VA, in a totally unnecessary way. Incident. Thank you, Francisco. The VAR looked at it in real time, but as you guys, I'm sure, remember, it was a very physical game. Guys were getting shoved, guys were getting tackles, and there was no foul called. So it becomes The VAR is looking at that moment, but they're also looking at everything else going on in the game, not something they want to actively review and pursue for a red card infringement. Then we heard yesterday, I believe, that he was suspended after a review of the incident post-game by the MLS. Inter Miami appealed it, and that appeal was denied. And so Luis Suárez is going to be suspended for Inter Miami's Game 3 against Nashville. First of all, I want to say this. A lot of people have been talking about the timing of the suspension. Again, it was announced, I believe, on Wednesday that this was going to happen. And people are saying, well, why didn't you do this 3 days earlier? As far as I can tell, they probably did do it on Sunday, and then Inter Miami appealed it, and they waited for the appeal process to go through before it ended up being reported. So I'm sure Inter Miami and Luis Suárez knew about this as a possibility Sunday or at latest Monday morning. But what do you think?
It's a really difficult one as a fan to understand, to make sense of. It puts a spanner in the works for Inter Miami's next game against Nashville, which is why I think a lot of Inter Miami fans are bitter about it. You make a good point that the decision probably came out 2 hours, 3 hours after the game. Inter Miami only appealed it later and then got the result of the appeal in midweek. So it feels like it's happened 3-4 days afterwards. But I think this...
Well, the reason that matters is because if Inter Miami has the whole week to prepare without Suárez versus only 2 days to prepare without Suárez, that is like a difference in your game planning and how you prepare through the week. But I think we should all operate on the assumption that Miami knew Monday morning when they came in that there was at least the possibility that Suárez wasn't going to be available.
I think you're absolutely right there. My question is, maybe we need to talk about whether this was an egregious enough error for them to go back retrospectively and overturn what VAR had already looked into and said on the pitch. Because I've seen this in real time. I've seen it in slow motion, and it's bad. He has kicked out, but it's not the most egregious error that I've ever seen from anyone on the pitch. So I'm not even sure that, okay, VAR at that time should have probably looked at it better and given a red card. But I don't even know if this is as bad of an incident for them to go back after the game to then overturn what the VAR did. So I feel like there's definitely worse incidents on a football pitch that demand a player to be suspended retrospectively. I don't think this was one of it. I think, yes, he kicks out, but it's also in the motion of his running. And I don't want to sound like a Luis Suárez apologist and whatever, but I don't think it was that bad. Let's be honest. Not bad enough for him to retrospectively be suspended for the game after.
You know, I've thought about this because it is, I want to be clear, a totally ridiculous thing to do. Stupid, arrogant, dirty, nonsensical thing to do. And like I don't want anyone to doubt that he's in the wrong here. But the question is not whether he did something that is, again, dirty and dumb, but whether what he did rises to the suspended for a do or die game 3 level. And I thought about this, and it's like, I think this is an 80-10 situation where 80% of the time you don't have anything come of it, or maybe you get a fine or something. And so I understand why people think that's ridiculous. He shouldn't be suspended for a game of this magnitude in this situation for a foul that's, while obviously dirty and dumb, not really injuring a player, not really like threatening their long-term health. On the other hand, if you do something dumb and dirty and there's a 20% chance you're going to get suspended, you put yourself in a position for that. And so I am just as frustrated with Luis Suárez for putting himself in that position as I am in the MLS for taking the aggressive approach to reprimanding him for what happened.
I want to be more upset at Luis Suarez, honestly. Like this season, he has really not held himself in glory at all with the way he's behaved off the pitch, on the pitch, some of the incidents that he's done. Like it hasn't been great. So you can definitely be upset at Luis Suarez and reprimand him for that and call him out for it because it really tarnishes the image of Inter Miami. It affects the image of the club, and it's not fun as fans to sit here and constantly try to defend him. At the end of the day, he is our player, so we're going to try and defend him, but he just keeps doing these things repeatedly that put us in a bad situation, that hurt our chances going into a do or die game. Because if Inter Miami loses, everyone's going to remember Luis Suarez taking that action in the previous game that's cost us a very important player in one of the most important games of the season. That being said, I still don't think he should have been reprimanded the way that he was. I think it's a little bit harsh. You can talk about whether he's a repeated offender or not. I think incidents should be treated in isolation if they're not as egregious as this one, because I don't think he's going out there with the intention of causing physical harm to the player. Well, maybe that sounds dumb in the outside of the context, but again, I didn't think it was that bad, man. I've seen much worse things happen on the football pitch.
It's also like a highly charged game, and it's very physical.
It was such a physical game, yeah.
And it's like a dumb decision in a half split second moment. It's not like I agree with you. I agree with you all the way. Like I think you have to be mad at Suarez for putting this even up for debate. You just shouldn't have done anything of the sort, and you wouldn't have any problems. Just like the other, 25 players that played in that game. No one does this except you. So you put yourself at risk of getting some sort of punishment after the fact. I also agree that I think it's kind of a harsh punishment. One thing I will say is I think we have seen this year a turning of favoritism from the league at Inter Miami. And we saw, I think, a huge exception made for Inter Miami when Lionel Messi signed. And if you look at the details of his contract with Adidas, with Apple TV, like there are clearly exceptions made to help facilitate Lionel Messi's coming to MLS. And that the MLS was clearly involved, and it's not that it was Inter Miami, but it was for Messi, given it perks that other players were not eligible for, or they wouldn't have done the same for other players or other teams. I don't think there's any denying that. But I also think if you look at what's happened over the last year or so, you've clearly seen the MLS not just enforce the same standards on Inter Miami as everyone else, but I think gone above that to punish Inter Miami players more than they would other teams and other players in a way that I find pretty disappointing. The suspensions for Jordi Alba and Lionel Messi at the All-Star game, notwithstanding, that being the exception, we have seen a lot of fines, and maybe we don't talk about them always, but situations where players are getting personal punishment in the form of fines. And the suspensions that came out from the Leagues Cup incident, I thought were way over the top. And this is a continuation of that. And so I want to really fight back and use this as an example that I don't think the MLS favors Inter Miami at all. And even though there was the one moment with Lionel Messi and his initial contract, it has not been the case since then. And I hope people are starting to come around to that.
No, absolutely. I can't think of a single moment this season where you would think that Inter Miami was outrightly favored by the referees or by decisions of VAR. We've got one penalty this season, maybe two now.
Well, I think we got like 5 by the end, but Nashville had like 15, including an extra one in the playoffs. That was fairly soft. And I don't think there's any doubt that from the refereeing that's been.
And it's not just that. You even listen to the commentators, and it's just they're trying so hard to be neutral or be not in favor of Inter Miami that by doing that inadvertently, they're being biased against Inter Miami. I can barely hear Taylor Twellman talk on commentary anymore. It's jarring. And I think it's an active effort to try and portray their neutrality, but in doing that, it comes across as being biased against Inter Miami. That's just the commentary. I think the ref decisions, while not actively against Inter Miami in any way, I don't think people saying that they favor Inter Miami, I think are very off the mark.
I think if you go back and look at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of games where we thought, man, like the refereeing was harsh today.
Maybe.
I also should mention, as Wookie in the chat says, and Nick as well, Ian Frey also got fined for the moment early in the game where he gets fouled. He clearly gets fouled, pulled from behind by Matthew Corcoran, and then the whistle blows because of the foul, and Yazbek blasts the ball right at him, and he kind of like jumps to avoid it, like sort of lifts himself off the ground to avoid getting hit by the ball, and Yazbek gets a yellow card. And they fined him for
simulation
when A, he had just been fouled, and B, he absolutely has the ball shot at his face.
Now, if that ball hit Frey, Yazbek was off, or Tagseth was off. Whoever did that, they're both the same player in my eyes.
Tagseth, my bad.
They would have been off, 100%. So I don't even think there should be a question about him holding his face instead of his hand, because he just got fouled to the ground, and then there's a Nashville player who's obviously heard the whistle blow, and 10 seconds later comes up and blasts it, trying to actively hit him. So that's stupid.
And he wasn't like passing the ball forward.
No,
it wasn't like he had an excuse to why he kicked. It's not like Sam Surge was making a run or anything. He just blasted forward, which you would never do in that situation if you were trying to play the game. So, this is, I think, also part of this, and I understand Luis Suárez is an unsympathetic character, and I understand that Inter Miami, because of, I think, the narrative around them, is an unsympathetic character, but I don't think we should just accept that if we see reason to think it's not true. So I thought it was really important to have that conversation because the number of incidents is sort of mounting, and other fan bases and other ownerships and GMs are like applauding this, and I'm sure we're part of the reason some of these things were happening in the first place, that you have to like ask for fairness across the board. And some people in the chat have said this: if it wasn't Luis Suárez, if it was Toto Aviles, or if it was Alex Muil for Nashville, whatever, they probably wouldn't be suspended for this game 3. But because Suárez is one of the people that is identified as making Miami this special exception within the MLS, he, I think, has been punished in a way that could really hurt Miami. And we might be having a different tone, but repeating this conversation next week.
And here's the thing. Nobody's asking for any favors. Nobody's asking them to stop doing this against Inter Miami. It's all about consistency. You can't treat two teams differently, and we're fine if the refereeing is consistent. I think you and I can both agree from the 6th minutes onwards, the referee was very harsh in giving versus not giving certain fouls, but we were okay with it because it was more or less consistent across both teams. It's about the decisions that you can see the referee is refereeing the game a certain way for the opposition versus when he's refereeing the game for Inter Miami. When that happens, that's, I think, a big no from my side because it's actively annoying and hindering Inter Miami. When there's consistency in decision-making, if you've made this decision against Luis Suárez, I want to see this now apply to every single player who does this. If VAR makes a wrong decision in the game, and if there's an active moment like that where a player is lashing out, they should be suspended. As simple as that. And this sets a really bad precedence in my eyes because long-term, now you have to be more consistent in how you make decisions.
Can I talk about precedent? I had this same exact conversation when the Leagues Cup final suspensions came out. I thought they were completely over the top and totally disregarding precedent set in previous incidents, which was 3 games, and Suarez ends up with a 9-game suspension. Like, this is not the first time we've brought this up. And I think a last time, people know you're in the wrong, but you still have to be punished in an appropriate way. And just because you're in the wrong doesn't mean that you don't deserve to be treated fairly in terms of how justice is served. And I think this is another example of it being an over-the-top punishment because it's not just Inter Miami, but because it's Luis Suarez. And I think that's a real shame. So that's all I have to say on it for now. But
that's 30 minutes. And here we thought we weren't even going to touch 5 minutes on this. But, oh, well, they find a way to make us talk.
Let's talk about what it means for Inter Miami, because this is, not for nothing, this is the biggest game of the Javier Mascherano era. If he wins, it's the biggest win. Let me phrase it that way. And now he's without the player that I think he's played the second most minutes for any Inter Miami player this season. Clearly, he has trusted this player beyond what most of us would have expected, probably what a lot of us think is deserved. And we have not had any point in this season where we've learned how to play without him, with the one exception being when he was suspended for 3 games after the Leagues Cup final. And so as we talk about what Inter Miami is going to do without Suarez, I looked back at those 3 games and what Inter Miami did without him. They lost 3-0 to Charlotte, and then they defeated the Seattle Sounders at home, and they defeated DC United at home. I did not come away comfortable with what Inter Miami can do without Luis Suarez, and going back to what I said at the very beginning of this episode, understand why people think, oh, this is a blessing in disguise. Oh, Inter Miami can be better without Suarez. Oh, we're going to prove we don't need Suarez. That's not what this season showed us. And Javier Mascherano's decisions in the times that Suarez didn't play, I don't think line up with what a lot of fans are hoping to see on Saturday night.
We played 3 games without him, 1-2, lost 1. Your memory is better than mine, so I don't really remember how we actually played in those games.
So we lost to Charlotte 3-0, and it was really bad. We played Seattle.
Away from home.
Charlotte was away from home. We played Seattle at home, and this was 2 weeks after the Leagues Cup final. And as we talked about having all the travel things to go there, they had all the travel things to come back, and played well. And then the DC United game was a 3-2 victory against a bad DC United team. So I don't want to say we played well. The best team we played in that was Charlotte, who was in incredible form at that time, and they beat us up.
Kicked our behind. Yep.
Yeah.
So here's my take on this. I think the last point that you made is the crux of this argument and the crux of this conversation. How Javier Mascherano approaches the game and the decisions that he makes would determine whether this is a positive or a blessing in disguise, or this is a negative. I think there is a universe. You and I can both put out a team in that universe that could potentially work better without Suarez in it than with Suarez in it. I think there's definitely potential and talent in this squad for this to work in our favor, for this to actually be a blessing in disguise where Miami can go out and beat Nashville without Luis Suarez. I think Miami should still beat Nashville without Luis Suarez, but I genuinely think there's a universe in which it could be a blessing in disguise, the way you set up, the way you put that team out, and what the starting 11 is. I don't think Javier Mascherano is our coach in that universe.
I don't agree with that. I don't.
I don't think Luis Suarez is in our best starting 11. I genuinely don't.
I understand what you're saying, and I think if you're playing the on-paper game, we can have that conversation. But if you take in form, you take in confidence, you take in has done it before in a must-win Game 3, I don't agree.
Okay, here's a question for you. How many must-win games have you played this season?
5,
I'll name a
4.
couple. Let's say the Al Ali game, because that was the first game of the Club World Cup where we wanted to actually show the world that we belong, right?
Yeah, the LAFC game
The
2.
LFC game,
He was good in that game.
uh, Seattle game, final,
He was
right?
good in that second.
Vancouver,
He was our best player in that
Vancouver,
game. Right? He
Vancouver.
provided the 2 assists.
Did we
Well,
win the
no.
game?
No, but he provided the 2 assists that could have won us the game.
What
Right?
was the biggest
It's
issue
not
that
his
we lost?
fault that
No,
Messi missed a sitter
but
and
that's
that
not the
Allende missed
point,
a sitter.
though.
But
The
it is
point I'm
because he
trying to
played
make.
well.
No.
Okay.
The
My
point
fault
I'm
for that.
trying
I
to make
interrupted.
is the 11 players that you put on the pitch. I think Luis Suarez is not in a certain combination of that 11. I think we could get the best out of that 11 without Luis Suarez on the pitch. That's what I think. I
Okay,
think
so
he's
let's
underperformed this season, and there's genuinely a chance that Inter Miami can perform much better without him on the pitch than not without. And if you're saying that's not possible, I would disagree with you on that.
I'm not saying it's not possible. You could throw Matteo Salvetti into the lineup and he can have 3 goals and be a hero. Like, of
No.
course, that's
It's
possible.
it's not about the could and should. It's not about the probability of this could happen. Yeah, tomorrow Gonzalo Lujan could score 3 headers and we could win the game.
Right.
Yeah, but I think there's a genuine chance that we perform better without Suarez in a more cohesive way and not just win by luck.
No, I hear what you're saying. Like, maybe so you throw in Salvetti and it just unlocks things in a way that I don't think you can predict. My suggestion is that I think Inter Miami would be better on Saturday night with Luis Suarez than without him. And again, I am taking into account form. I'm taking into account the things we've seen this year. If you're going to ask Salvetti to go in there, you're asking him to do something we haven't seen before. And so, like, that's a part of it. If we had spent time this season preparing for life without Luis Suarez, we may have tried a bunch of those things and seen if we liked. Like, I'm not suggesting there's not a world where you could have built into that. I'm suggesting right now, everyone has chemistry with Suarez, except Fafa. And, like, that's not the case for everyone in every position. As we just saw last weekend with Baltasar going into the midfield. You can't just move pieces around without these guys understanding where they're supposed to be, because this is a must-win game. And if they become a ghost because of it, like, you really did cost yourself. So, sure, it's possible that we could win 6-1 on Saturday night. Like, of course that's possible. But I would rather have Suarez in my starting 11 than not have him, I guess is my point.
I think with the way Nashville has been playing against Inter Miami, the reason I think this is a blessing in disguise is because, again, I think this is a blessing in disguise. I don't fully know if it's one or not. Is because Inter Miami might be actually forced to play Segovia. Well, okay, let me actually rephrase this entire conversation. If I was the coach of Inter Miami, this has happened.
Yeah.
Suarez is not there, right? I have to deal with this. The first thing I look at is, okay, what did I struggle most with in the last game? There were a couple of things. I think Inter Miami in the latter half of that game did dominate. We were pushing high up, but we really struggled in having the bodies in the middle. As soon as you push Busquets back into the center back role at halftime, well, not even at halftime, before that, you lost a man in the middle. I would actually use this opportunity to play Segovia and Yannick Bright so that in case during the game I need to push push Sergio Busquets back into the back line, I won't be dominated in the middle. By having Sergio Busquets, Yannick Bright, and Rodrigo de Paul, or Sergio Busquets, Segovia, and Rodrigo de Paul in the middle, you're creating that numerical equality against the very solid Nashville middle. And then I think there's enough goals in having Baltazar, Messi, and Allende up top that you'll be able to break this. You want to talk about a low block? If Nashville scores first and if they get into a low block, I think having Segovia on the pitch would be a benefit there. You want to talk about verticality? I think Allende being up there, Baltazar being there is already solving that. Luis Suarez doesn't solve for the verticality. Of course, Luis Suarez is a fantastic player, but I will honestly say what your suggestion is, I want to flip that. Luis Suarez has been good in certain games where Inter Miami has been lucky and been able to get the result out of Luis Suarez. But I think most of the games that we played this season, it hasn't really mattered whether he needs to be on the pitch or not. That's the way
Okay.
I'm viewing it.
Tell
But
me
this is what I would do if I was the coach.
Yeah, tell me what lineup you would want, because you said a couple things that don't all work together. So tell me what your lineup would be. Your lineup. Not
Okay,
Javier
so
Mascherano's,
here's the
your lineup.
11, right? We have
Wait,
Rocco
what
Rios
formation?
Novo in.
Are we sticking
Let
with
me
the
think of
4-4-2?
the 11. No,
Okay, I understand. Sorry.
I'll have to think of the 11 players and then, because I think I'd rather the players than the formation and the players.
Okay.
Does that
go
make
ahead.
sense?
Sure.
And I know I want a 3-man midfield. So I would go for Rocco Rios Novo, of course, Ian Frey, Maxi Falco, Noah Allen, Jordi Alba. That's 5. I'd go for Rodrigo De Paul, Sergio Busquets, Telasco Segovia, midfield 3. Tadeo Allende top. I would go for a 4-4-2 in this situation because now I know what 11 I want. Baltazar Rodriguez as a left-sided midfielder, and then Tadeo Allende and Messi up top. So that's my 4-4-2 with.
So you want Segovia as a right-sided midfielder? Mm-hmm. Something we haven't seen all year. Mm-mm. This is what I'm talking about, though. And we talked about this plenty of times during the regular season, wanted to see Segovia
But
on
I
the right
could play
side.
a diamond there.
But now you're talking about something we haven't seen all year in a must-win game. And what if it doesn't work and you're down 2 goals after 20 minutes because the defense isn't set up right? And
Listen,
people don't
I'm
know
the
where they're supposed
coach
to
and
be.
it's going to work, okay?
No, but-
They're going to score a hat trick in the first 30 minutes.
This is my point. If we had experimented with that back in May or in July, I would be for it. And that's why I'm saying, like, if we're back in the regular season and Suarez is gone and he gets abducted by aliens, like, I agree with you. You can build a lineup that can be ultra competitive without him. But you don't have time to experiment. And so that's what makes me nervous. Putting Segovia on the right and him interrupting with Ian Frey, and then all of a sudden you lose 2 players because neither knows what they're supposed to be doing on the right side, and that entire right side of the pitch is useless against a low block. Like, that concerns me as something that
We've
could
played
happen
Messi as
because
a
we
false
haven't
9
seen
this
it.
week, this year, right? We've played Messi as a false 9 this year.
I don't know about a
in, like,
false
2
9,
games.
but he's played as like a dual striker as part of it.
Eh,
Dual striker setup.
Well, you're not going to be satisfied with whatever I put out there, but that's the
No, but
lineup
that's
I would play, honestly.
That's my point, and that's fine. And if we were going to Nashville in July, I'm for it. I'm happy for it. It's the problem is we didn't see it all year. And we talked about it. And again, if you were coach, we would have been experimenting with these things all season to see what works and what doesn't, so that if this happens, we would have a ready plan. So I think you're a good coach. Don't worry, Saur. I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense.
I think I'm a better coach than Mascherano.
My concern is we haven't seen any of these things before, in part because Mascherano didn't play around with these things over the course of the regular season. And that is what concerns me. And so you've got, like, I am so nervous about this that I'm not even thinking I can put together an 11 I would feel confident with. I guess is my final take on it. Because anywhere you go, you have someone playing something they haven't really done this year. With the exception of maybe throwing Silvetti into the starting 11. And again, Silvetti played 300 minutes for Inter Miami as a right-sided midfielder. And that would still include Segovia not starting or Baltasar. It would still include Yannick Bright not starting. It wouldn't have the 3-man midfield. And then you get to the ultimate question, which is, can Inter Miami score goals if not only do they, and they will, focus entirely on Lionel Messi, but your best forward goal scorer other than Lionel Messi is now not there, that they don't even have to pay any attention to. And they definitely pay attention to him and give him respect and let him, they don't let him operate freely because they think he's terrible. He does take up more attention than Tadeo Allende will or Silvetti will or whatever, and that will make it even more difficult for Lionel Messi. So this is a real coaching conundrum if you're Javier Mascherano. It is hard. It is hard.
Could you tell me the lineup that we played, let's say against Charlotte, when Luis Suarez was out.
Yeah, I wanted to take this into conversation of what they might actually do. We're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
talking about what we would do. So I have all of that up. Here was the 11. They played Ustari in goal. Noah Allen, Maxi Falcone, and Gonzalo. Sorry, that's Seattle. Charlotte. Ustari in goal. They played a 4-4-2 with Jordi Alba, Maxi Falcone, Tota Aviles, and Ian Frey as the back four. Telasco Segovia is that left-sided midfielder. DePaul, Bright, and Busquets operating through the middle. And then Messi and Allende up top.
And why can't we do that?
Well, the one time we did it, we lost 3-0 against Charlotte.
Okay. So we have done that before, right? That was the exact lineup that I gave, just change the back line.
No,
Well,
you had
no,
Segovia on
I
the
said
right.
I had, yeah.
You had
So-
Segovia on the right and Baltasar on the left instead of Yannick Bright in the midfield. We
Okay,
talked a
and then
lot
against-
about when DePaul was playing on the right, how we're not getting a ton out of him on the right. Now, granted, we've also seen him play in his natural position and still not gotten a ton out of him. So, maybe that change was made to spark him, and it didn't actually spark him. So, but
Okay,
that's a game
what
we
about
lost
against
3-0.
Seattle?
Against Seattle, and this is where we're going to get into what I think might actually happen. That makes me nervous. We went to a back three, and we played Gonzalo Lujan, Maxi Falcone, and Noah Allen as a back three, Jordi Alba and Ian Frey as wing backs, DePaul, Bright, and Busquets in the midfield, and Messi and Allende up top. So it's sort of a 5-3-2. And that is not something we've played since Luis Suárez came back into the 11 in that NYCFC road game. So not only have we not played a three-man midfield with Bright, Busquets, and DePaul in months, which makes me nervous, but also that would mean you take Luis Suárez out and you put in Gonzalo Lujan. And I don't want to see that at all.
I think the way this could work, again,
So that makes me nervous.
don't think this would happen. But if you want to say, okay, your biggest concern is we haven't seen what I'm suggesting previously, and that's why it might not actually happen, which is a valid concern, by the way. I think you're spot on there. Is your concern both with regards to formation and the players?
Formation and players playing in specific spots.
So here's the thing, right? We're speculating. We're just having fun right now. We're exploring. We're understanding what could happen. So it's none of this is going to happen. Or Javi Marciano is going to do what Javi Marciano does. I'm just trying to make sense of all of this, and I really enjoy it. So bear with me here. But if we play the same lineup that we played against Seattle, instead of Gonzalo Lujan, you could actually push back Sergio Busquets, have that three-man back line, which we've been seeing the entirety of the games against Nashville. Every game that we played against Nashville, Sergio Busquets has inevitably fallen back as a centre back. You play the midfield three of Rodrigo de Paul, Yannick Bright, and Segovia. They've played the three. They've played the three-man midfield once against Seattle, so they could potentially do that. And then you play the two-man up front with Messi and Allende. That, for me, would actually be a really, really good lineup. Maybe even better than the 4-4-2 that I went with. But I get your point. The concern is we haven't seen Segovia, Yannick Bright, and Rodrigo de Paul play in the middle together. And the more likely option here is Javi Marciano reverts to having Gonzalo Lujan as a back three rather than Sergio Busquets as a back three. I wouldn't bet my money against it, actually, that Sergio Busquets falls into that back three and we play Segovia, Bright, and Rodrigo de Paul, or Segovia, Rodrigo de Paul, and Baltazar.
I think it's funny because that's the exact lineup that I advocated for when DePaul first came here with Busquets in the back line. And well, I guess you take out Allende and you put in Suarez as the striker. But basically, that's the formation I want. And if we end up there in a do-or-die game, I will be, A, vindicated, and B, very frustrated that we didn't get there earlier. Here's the problem. Not the problem. Here's added information I should tell you. When that period of time happened, Segovia and Baltasar missed time and were not 90 minutes fit. And they're both clearly ready and able to start now. So I don't know if that throws a wrench into Javier Mascherano's thinking, but what I will say is what you just described is exactly what I would do, and it's what I theorized would happen earlier today, or rather yesterday when the news came out. I will say Taylor Schwalman responded and said there's no way they're going to play a back three. So I don't know if he knows anything that I don't know, but that's kind of what I expect to happen.
And again, maybe this is a silver lining and we finally play the formation that you've always wanted to play. But there's just so much going around here in terms of speculation. So we don't really know what's going to happen. What I will say is we did have one complaint. We don't want to play Nashville again because it's going to be boring. We know exactly what's going to happen, all of that. Now we have a conversation. Now, when that lineup drops, we're going to have something to talk about. We've had a midweek episode because of Luis Suárez, so thank you. In one way or another, you made this very interesting. And if Inter Miami wins or loses, this could be something that we land on. Who knows? But the conversation has at least become a lot more interesting, whether we like it or not.
What I will say is, I think a lot of people predicted Inter Miami would play a lot better when Suarez was suspended for 3 games, and that wasn't the case if you look at goals scored and everything. And in fact, when he came back, like I think that period of time they were starting to figure things out, and then when he came back, they really exploded, and very memorably in that 4-0 win at NYCFC that we all thought was impossible. But really, like they've been in incredible goal scoring form ever since, and it makes me nervous to break that up. And I think maybe that's the biggest takeaway is I think Inter Miami man for man matches up against Nashville pretty well. And you kind of have to have things go your way for Nashville to be competitive in a game. And that happened for them on Wednesday night. It was pouring. The referee was calling the game in a way that I thought favored Nashville. And then they got a penalty and a set piece, and that's what it was. But I think if you go straight up, heads up, Inter Miami's the better team and will win, especially at home. Now I think this introduces all sorts of tactical questions that are laying in the hands or at the feet of Javier Mascherano. And that is where I really, like, my confidence falls apart. Because if you tell me Mascherano has to watch what Nashville did last game, look at the film and say, okay, I didn't see it on the sideline, but I see it now. This is how I want to attack them. That's, I can get behind. You telling me he has to reset his whole formation and still do that, and not just, attack what Nashville did, but prepare for what they're going to do now that Inter Miami's changed their formation, that makes me very nervous. And so I get it. People want to see Silvetti because he's exciting. He was good in the U20 World Cup, and you want to see Telasco because he had a good game and he provided Messi with an assist, and he was very good this year, especially in big games. I think there's a chance we see Gonzalo Lujan, and we go to a back 3, and we're over-reliant on our fullbacks getting high and putting balls into the box to no striker. Like, I just think there's a way this could really fall apart for Inter Miami, and a lot of that has to do with us not being set up to succeed because I don't trust Javier Mascherano.
Okay, so you've spoken about having a bigger imagination than me in this very episode. So now I want you
wait.
to take the same experiment.
Okay, go ahead.
I want you to do the exact same experiment as I did and give me your preferred starting 11 in an ideal universe in which Luis Suarez is suspended. But there's no holds barred as to whether Inter Miami's played a formation before or not, whether Inter Miami's played those personnel in those formations. Just go for it and give me what you would play against Nashville if you were the coach of Inter Miami on Saturday.
I want to be clear. I cannot come up with a formation that I'm really comfortable with. Not a formation, a lineup that I'm really comfortable with. So
the best that you can come up with.
I think you go Rocco in goal. I think you go with the 4-4-2. Not because I like the 4-4-2, but it's what they are comfortable in right now.
No. I don't want you to think about
but that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's part of it. For me, it's part of it.
Okay.
What you are comfortable doing, what you understand schematically, I want to keep that the same, as similar as possible. You go Jordi Alba, Noah Allen, Falcone. Just like during the regular season, I might choose Toto Avidas over Falcone. In this moment, because of form and because of playing time, I'm picking Falcone. Ian Frey at right back. I would make the switch for Segovia. At left-sided midfielder, I would go Busquets and DePaul in the midfield. I would go Messi and Allende up top, and I would probably choose... I might choose Baldassar on the right. I also, you know what might interest me actually? I might stick Allende on the right and put Baltasar and Messi up top. That's what I would do. I'd put Messi and Baltasar up top and move Segovia into the mid, to replace Baltasar, and then keep everything else the same.
There's so many interesting permutations. I think there's also a case to be made. First of all, that's a good lineup, but there's also a case for maybe dropping Baltazar, having Silvetti as your right winger. Well, he's played left, right, this entire season, so I'm not sure if
No, he's played on the right mostly.
he's played right. He's played right, yeah. So have
he's played
Silvetti
both.
as your right,
But again,
have Segovia as your left.
Playing both means he's played 150 minutes on both sides.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
like he's played a lot of minutes.
Yeah, but Silvetti starts, put Segovia on the left to allow him to be that extra midfielder if we need, and then Allende and Messi up top. That's also an interesting one. But there's so many permutations.
I'm convincing myself that Baltasar and Messi up top is the way to go because everyone else is comfortable in their spot. Baltasar is the one player who you maybe isn't comfortable in that role, but he's also the one player that is chaotic, high up the field, can do some pressing. And if you take away all of his defensive responsibility, I wouldn't mind seeing that. And we know he can score a goal. We know he's not afraid to take guys on. And we know he's technical enough to interchange with Messi. That's what I would do. I like it, actually. I found a way to make this palatable for me. And then everyone behind them is comfortable and settled into their role. I like it. 4-4-2 for me.
Headless chicken, here we come.
Now, what do you think's going to happen?
I think there's two things. He could either revert to having Lord Lujan in the back, and that's what he's going to do, because we know Javier Mascherano is a creature of habit. He's only going to do what he's comfortable doing, and he's seen before. He's seen that happen. He's won 2 games with it. He's probably going to stick with that. Or he's just going to go simple and play Baltazar and Silvetti instead of just slide Silvetti in, and that's it. And have Allende as the striker. So, I don't know. I think those are the two options that he's probably going to go with.
If he goes with Silvetti in the lineup, I'd rather see Silvetti up top than in that right midfield role.
Yeah. But it's the same as you saying Baltazar being up top, right?
Yeah.
Well,
and not just that. Like I think when we're talking about the defensive responsibility, Allende does it much better than Silvetti at this point, and that is important when any goal will end your season. So, like I really want to be secure.
Yeah.
Going.
No,
backwards.
That's fair. But I think Nick makes makes an important point. It's just going to be like a simple switch out, and that's it.
I have another question, and I don't know if the Suarez thing changes it at all, but obviously it does change it, and we're sort of working through this. What we saw last game, and maybe this would have been a bigger talking point in this episode if not for Suarez's suspension. What we saw last game was when the press came from Nashville, he moved Busquets into the back line, and he slid Baltasar into the midfield. And I kind of had convinced myself that you kind of have to make the switch to Segovia, because if that's a move you want to make and you feel good about, Segovia can play the midfield role better than Baltasar, both by profile, both by historical experience, and by what we saw on Saturday night. That change, I think, is actually maybe the one I want to see the most, because if it's Silvetti in for Suarez and Allende up top, that means Segovia's on the bench. It means Yannick Bright's on the bench. And I think having Segovia as as the left-sided midfielder is important if making those switches that puts Busquets on the back line and then sliding that guy into the midfield is in your head. I think it's more important Segovia starts than Baltasar. So
I think I start Segovia. Yeah, I think I like yours as well. You've probably convinced me to go with Baltazar up top. Even if it's Allende up top, Baltazar on the right, or Silvetti on the right, that doesn't matter. For me, I think you've nailed it. Well, I need that midfield security. I need Segovia there.
So, but what you just said for Silvetti, that would imply, like, that would not affect a Baltazar versus Segovia decision.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly.
Let's say that happens. You want to see Segovia over Baltazar.
I do want to see Segovia over Baltazar. Yeah.
I'm there too. Especially if that change, putting Busquets in the back line, is in your head as something you might do, especially early in the game like we saw this past weekend. I think it has to be Velasco Segovia.
We've lost the midfield battle more often than not against Nashville, by the way. Over the course of 270 minutes that we've played, I think Inter Miami's lost the midfield battle for at least 180. And I think you need to win that midfield on Saturday to win this game.
Yeah.
Bring Bright, man. Bring Bright. Just
It is
take us
weird
all
that-
away from out of our misery. Honestly, I would actually play Bright over anyone else in that
It
middle.
is weird that he hasn't factored into this conversation much, but I just don't know how you do it unless you just start with
Within
Busquets
Javi
on the back line.
Marciano's given template and blueprint, I don't know how you do it. Yeah, agree.
Okay. I just want to see if there's any really interesting ones we didn't see or talk about in the chat. And then as far as other guys, Fafa Bako's not going to start. Alan Abano's not
No.
going to start. Toto Aviles is not going to start. Chelo Wegan's not going to start. Like, we're only working with what we think is actually possible. So if anyone wants to try and talk about Fafa Bako being the key to this game, I won't necessarily disagree with you, but I just don't think it's going to happen. So in terms of being given the opportunity. So I have one way that I'm comfortable with this and about 15 that I'm not. But maybe that's just the nature of being a soccer fan. So I will end it there. Any final thoughts?
No, it's 4 games. This is going to be an interesting one. We thought there'd be nothing more to talk about when it comes to Inter Miami and Nashville, and yet here we are. Luis Suárez has changed the conversation, changed the tone, and honestly has made us a little bit nervous going into this game on Saturday. Inter Miami needs to come out victorious one way or another, man. You got to win. Biggest game of the season. After this, 4 more games. Well, 3 more games after this. Let's do it. Up the Herons.
Let me check one last thing real quick. Inter Miami plays Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, which means we will be here for the pregame show 1 hour before kickoff, as always, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And I don't know about you, Sor, but I am going to be a nervous wreck. Guys, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for being in the comment section. Hope you all have a lovely night. I hope you guys are all less nervous than I am, and then we can all be nervous together in the hour before kickoff. But until then, hope you have a lovely night. I'll see you guys next time. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this and have a wonderful day.